What's up guys, Matt from footballboots.co.uk, and today we're bringing you our latest and arguably greatest blackout to date. With Adidas releasing Black Pure Control and Pure Chaos boots, what about the Pure Agility? Well, we'll be taking the solar blue Speed of Light Messi 16 Plus Pure Agilities and transforming them into a stunning blackout, but with added chrome detailing and a gradient sole plate. You guys need to see how these come out. So as you can see in the background, we've tried our luck with a few previous blackouts, but we think we've now mastered how to effectively black out the collar as well as the upper. As always, the first step is applying acid to all parts of the boot which you wish to black out. All you need is the step 1 acid and a cotton pad. These boots are pretty clean, but if yours are dirty, then you'll see some discolouring on the cotton pad afterwards. The next part of the preparation is crucial if you want a sharp finish. Adding some tape around the sole plate where it meets the upper will help to make sure little to no dye will run onto the outsole. Some sole plates allow for the acid to take it off, but from past experience we knew Adidas's chrome doesn't. So all the prep work done, let's get straight into the blackout. We had a good feeling about how the agility nip would take to the dye, and after a few sections this was definitely proving true. The best way to apply the dye is to use a fairly thin paintbrush and evenly coat small sections at a time, rather than just going all out quickly across the entire upper. This way you can see any areas which need a top up. We started by dyeing the toe box area which attaches to the rest of the boot through a covered stitching line. Having a clear part of the boot which you're coating in dye definitely works the best. Make sure to go right up to the sole plate where the tape is, but remembering that some dye may seep through if there's too much on the brush. We weren't overly fussed as we'd be spray painting the sole plate with a gradient effect afterwards. So here's how the boot looked after completing the vamp. Messi's first blackout was on its way, but we had to continue by dyeing the covered stitch line and most of the upper. The only part of the upper which we want to maintain its original look was the Adidas 3 stripes on the lateral side panel, as this had a classy chrome finish originally. We also went around the Messi logo on the other side of the boot, but what we had planned was to later black it out and then use a metallic silver nail varnish to match the 3 stripes opposite. Try to be as neat as possible for a crisp finish around the logos, but nearer the end of the blackout process you can see us use a Sharpie to neaten up everything for a final touch. So progressing onto the rest of the boot, here's how they're looking once all of the synthetic agility knit upper had been coating in dye, but now was for the more tricky exposed knitting material, so we changed up our product to the fabric dye. For the front part of the pure cut lace cover, we simply dipped our brush straight into the blackout dye again, which worked really well. So we were then ready for the tough tech fit material. Here's how they're looking compared to its original solar blue Speed of Light colourway, and I was already preferring the new look, and we hadn't even added any chrome or gradient effects. To change the overall knitted colourway a little bit darker, we firstly used the black dye again all across the collar trim and collar itself, ready to apply the more suitable fabric dye. As you can see, once it was dry, there was definitely some blue still showing through, so adding some fabric dye was absolutely necessary. One feature of the Pureagility boots is the pure cut lace cover, which is great for clean touch and ball striking, but makes it incredibly difficult to black out. So you'll just need to make sure you black out as much as possible so no original solar blue can be seen. Before we started with the fabric dye, we gave the upper a quick second coat of the blackout dye, which just ensured the boots were solid black and would last a long time. Blake is still wearing his Blackout Superfly 4s we did almost a year ago. Using the fabric dye previously, we learned to not make it too thick, so what we did was create a much more watery solution through adding more fabric dye medium, but then also adding some of the blackout dye to make it jet black instead of light grey. Adding it to the front of the tech fit collar to start, and it was working pretty perfectly after just the first few strokes. It looked and felt much more natural than previous collar blackouts, which is exactly what we wanted, as these boots would be worn instead of kept on the mantelpiece. Because the fabric dye can get quite thick and sticky, it's best to use it sparingly instead of heavily. Just be careful to not get the fabric dye onto the upper, as it affects the perfect finish you've already created. So after completing one side of the collar, here's how it looked compared to the just dyed side, and you can tell just how effective the fabric version is. Moving on to the other side of the collar, just use the exact same technique as before and you'll be well on your way to creating a slick blackout boot. Finish off fabric dye on the collar trim both above and below, and then you can check out the blacked out boot after its first coating. The fabric dye is made to have two coats, so once fully dry you can go back over it in the same way. When you add the second coat of fabric dye, you can really start to see how well it works, as you're left with a solid black base and ready to add any special effects you wish, like us with the spray painted sole plate and nail varnished Messi logo coming next. Give the collar a quick dry with a hairdryer, as the heat helps to set the fabric dye. Take the tape off around the sole plate, tape back on a carry bag to go over the dyed upper, and then head outside for a spray painting sesh. Because we wanted to create a gradient effect, we only sprayed the front and middle of the sole plate to leave the back quarter in its original solar blue colourway, which looked so good. The trick is to not use too much spray, as it can become too wet and run or crack, whilst also making sure that every little area is coated in the spray paint to ensure a quality finish. Worst comes to worst, you can use a Sharpie once it's dried. Back in the office and to the boot table, and here's what the boots looked like after taking off the bag to protect the upper. It was looking spot on, so now it was time for nail varnish and finishing touches. The first thing to do was use the bottle of finish to seal the dye, which makes sure it lasts a decent amount of time. It's pretty milky, so make sure it's all rubbed into the upper. The finish also gives the boot a much more premium looking matte quality. Onto the Messi logo to match the Adidas 3 stripes, and here's where the metallic silver nail varnish comes into its own. The original brush was too thick, so we used our own much thinner one to dab onto the logo very carefully, as you don't want to get it onto the upper itself. This part of the blackout took the most time by some margin, but we wanted to make it perfect. So after finishing with the nail varnish, we went around the Messi logo with a black Sharpie to neaten up the edges. So here's how the all new blacked out Messi 16 Plus Pureagility looks compared to its original form. Vote in the poll card now for your preferred look. Not being biased, but the black version gets my vote all day, every day. The little pops of solar blue coming from the back of the sole plate and laces really adds to the overall look, and the chrome either side of the Messi boots caps off one of the best blackouts to date we've ever done. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below and what boots we should black out next. Thanks for watching, cheers.